Welcome. It is my pleasure to welcome you to World Mental Health Day 2024 in collaboration with Aptsuri. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to share with you a wealth of my knowledge as a rapid transformational therapist that I have gathered on how to successfully overcome imposter syndrome. If you are one of the lucky few who does not suffer from imposter syndrome, then I am certain that today's presentation is going to help you to deal with other people around you, because I know that of your closest 3 friends, 2 are going to be suffering from imposter syndrome as well. And if you're working with people in any way, be that in HR or in a team, then you are also going to be dealing with people who suffer from imposter syndrome. And it is my objective to give you the tools today to not only change how you talk to yourself and how you show up, but to help the people around you. Let's start with what imposter syndrome is. Oxford Dictionary defines it as the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own effort or skills. We feel that we are not living up to the visual that we have of the person we should be. Perhaps we think we should be the person we're going to be in 10 plus years as we progress through our career. Or perhaps we're comparing ourselves to others that are in similar positions, though normally they're even more senior than we are or been in that position for longer. And we believe that in order to be truly seen as competent in our role, we need to be as they are. And because we're comparing ourselves to this idealized version, we don't realize that we're going to get there naturally over time, but as with everything, practice takes time. And those people who we idealize, they also started out in the same position that we are today. I'd like to share the story of my client. We'll call her Tina, and she was recently promoted to senior doctor. She was evaluated by a board, and they decided to promote her over other applicants, even external applicants. And she came to me and she said, how can I ever live up to this role? There's no way I can fill those shoes. I mean, the patients, they might listen to me, but what about the other senior doctors that I have to communicate with and the nurses, and people are just going to question everything I say and do because I'm just a young woman. And I had to say, stop. You are good enough and qualified exactly as you are. And the board saw that. She was comparing herself to the senior doctors that she was used to seeing around the hospital, who have been in that role for years and years, and they have a different way of presenting things. And she was afraid that if a situation arose that she hadn't seen yet, that she could perhaps not react competently. And through the session, and I can tell you now with confirmation by her, she started the role and she feels so good in that role because she realized that she doesn't need to hold on to that imposter. The committee that chose to hire her and selected her over all the other hires saw that she had the competence and the personality that it takes in order to be a senior doctor. And they chose her because they see her as being good enough for the role exactly as she is today. So we need to stop comparing ourselves with others and with our own, perhaps completely idealized version of who we think we should be. Next, we need to let go of that external need for validation for our own achievements. This normally stems from earliest childhood because parents and other caregivers, no matter how loving and well-intentioned they are, they will promote certain behavior over others by rewarding some behavior with compliments, with love, and punishing other behavior. Now, this has perfectly reasonable and purposeful ways of conducting, but it can be detrimental to our own self-esteem, and it can leave us waiting at the end of the day for that pat on the back, either from a real person or that imaginary parent to give us the validation that we were seeking from our earliest childhoods. The next symptom of imposter syndrome is the fear of being exposed as a fraud. We're so busy trying to prove to everybody and getting the accolades and getting the promotions and the raises and the next degree to show the world, look, I've got all these accolades. You must accept me because I am good enough. I am showing you that I've got everything it takes to be good enough. Though, honestly, the world hardly ever expects that from us because there is this inherent belief that if you are there, you deserve to be there. And next comes the feeling that success is unmerited or we just got lucky. Yes, perhaps you did get lucky, but there's nothing wrong with a little bit of luck along your way. And maybe your boss left the company and that's why you got the promotion. Or maybe you happened to go for lunch with somebody and they just knew the perfect job for you. That does not take away from the fact that you deserve to be where you are. You deserve to be exactly where you are because you have the qualifications that you need. Now, as I'm going through these different symptoms, does it resonate with you? Do you feel like these symptoms describe what you are experiencing? I have to raise my hand here and be honest. I'm a recovering imposter. And if I can change, so can you. The research proves that 40% of professional men and 70% of professional women say that they suffer from imposter syndrome at different stages in their life, private and professional. Although I would say those numbers are probably too low. Based on the conversations I've had in closed groups where people open up and they're truly honest, across both genders, I would say we're around 90% that admit to having feelings of the imposter syndrome at times throughout their day, private and professional. Imposter syndrome is not all bad because it drives us to constantly strive for more. So there is one part of the imposter syndrome that really will push you forward. Because you're going to take on the extra assignment, you're not going to say no, you're going to study harder, you're going to come earlier, stay later. You're really dedicated because you don't want to be found out as a fraud. You want the accolades. You want to prove that you deserve to be there, and you're trying to prove it to yourself. But at the same time, you are going to be building a better rapport with whatever the subject matter is that you are working your way into. And this will show up because you'll see that the higher you go in organizations, the more people will say that they are suffering from imposter syndrome because the imposter has driven them up the career ladder and gotten them these opportunities. So how do we combine the good aspects of being driven, diligent, trustworthy, showing up and wanting to learn more without the negative sides that come with the imposter syndrome? The key here is to understand that you are good enough exactly as you are today. You're on a human being journey, and you can't be the person that you might be in 10 years today. You're going to develop in so many more amazing ways until you get there. So enjoy the ride. Now that we know the positive side and how we can keep that, let's look at the negative sides that can come with imposter syndrome. Some of the consequences you may have is suffering from perfectionism, which is very classic. If you don't want to be found out as a fraud, if you'd like the accolades, the pat on the back, you're going to do everything in order to come across as perfect. I hate to say it, but perfect doesn't exist. And you are going to drive yourself crazy trying to achieve perfect. And along the way, you're going to suffer health consequences and relationship consequences. You might then take a step back and say, let me just procrastinate. If I wait till the last minute, I not only have an excuse towards the outside, but also an excuse on the inside as to why it didn't turn out perfect. If I don't get the accolades, if I don't get the promotion, I can say, or the presentation didn't go as I wanted, I can say, well, I waited till the last moment. So, I just threw some slides together and I winged it. But you're cheating yourself in that moment. Because if you would have just started a little sooner, gotten rid of the need to be perfect, the perceived need to be perfect, you could have done so much better. And this constant fight, not just with the outside world and the expectations that this world have on us, but also this internal fight, this voice that is living rent-free in our head and saying all this negativity is going to tear us down and give us low self-esteem. And our confidence cannot shine. We cannot show up in our own true power if we constantly have this voice living in our head telling us, you're not good enough, you can't do this, you'll never achieve anything, you're just a fraud, they're going to find out. That is so detrimental. A client came to me after she was divorced, because imposter syndrome had driven her so much that she spent every minute of her day working, trying to get better to prove that she wasn't a fraud. And finally, her husband left, and even her children were starting to pull away from her because she just wasn't physically present. So strained personal relationships can be a direct result of suffering from imposter syndrome. Also, other social dysfunctions. Say you're working in a team and your colleague is suffering from imposter syndrome, and now they see that the accolades that another team member is getting as them not getting it and making them feel less than. That could lead to them even sabotaging the team just to prevent that others are getting ahead. And you can see how that can lead to dire consequences in a company, a team, or even within a family. All this pressure can lead to decreased performance because you're piling pressure upon pressure to try and get out of it. Anxiety and panic attacks can happen. You might feel clammy, even have GI issues before you go into the office or Sunday night, lying awake all night long because you're just so anxious as to what's going to happen when I walk into the office tomorrow. And when you go back to bed and you lay down in bed and it's finally quiet, all the happenings of the day come back into your mind. And you think of that one email you should have worded differently and the conversation you had at the coffee and how you spoke to your boss, and maybe you should have said it a little differently and you're certain that he or she hates you now. All those thoughts come flooding back because you don't feel like you're good enough. Perhaps the only way you see that you can quiet your mind is by reaching for substances so that you can have an excuse to not be perfect, to just let go and let down your hair just for a moment. Chronic pain can be another symptom because it's just too much pressure. And even rock under pressure will crumble. And ultimately, suffering from imposter syndrome can lead to depression and burnout. I'd like to share a story of another client of mine. We'll call him John. He came to me after he had been suffering for over 10 years from depression. He had lost all motivation and ability to focus. He had low self-esteem and eventually lost his last job. When he came to me, he couldn't motivate himself to get up, to write letters to write his applications because he said, it's just not going to be perfect enough. So he kept putting it out and putting it out. And he was getting more and more anxious because of that. He said that nobody's going to hire him because he's been out of the workforce now for a while and his skills were outdated. He also thought he couldn't sell himself in an interview. He was suffering from anxiety, panic attacks, sleeping problems, and a couple of other things. And I'm really happy to tell you that after 4 sessions, he reported back that he had gotten all his motivation back, his concentration and his focus. He applied to a couple of jobs, went to the interview of his favorite job. He rocked the interview and he's now fully employed again and really happy and motivated. He does not feel anxious or depressed anymore. And that all in just 4 sessions. Isn't that incredible? Now, if you'd like to work with me, I'm really happy to make you my next happy client. And if you're just walking away today and you'd like some input, how can you achieve the same transformation? Well, it all starts with the words you say to yourself, because the most important words you'll ever hear are the words you say to yourself. That is how you can ensure that you are creating the narrative inside of your head that is supportive. Because how can you show up and perform in a confident way if there's this voice up here telling you all the time, you'll never manage, you can't do that, you're not good enough, just forget it, you're a fraud? No, we need to change the way we think. And when we change the way we think, we can change how we show up in this world. How come? The reason is in your subconscious mind. Let me explain. Every thought you think creates a feeling in your body. And that feeling is going to lead to an action or an inaction. And the consequence of that is going to reinforce that original thought you had. So let's use an example. A classic example I'm sure you're going to relate to, giving a presentation. The majority of us really dislike giving a presentation. And it goes sort of like this. We get the request, Alexandra, I'd like you to give a presentation. And then I go, oh God, this is terrible. I'm going to fail so badly. I hate giving presentations. It makes me so nervous. My heart pounds, I get anxious, I have a panic attack, then my tongue gets all tied up, I forget my words, I lose my train of thought, and then the entire audience thinks I'm incompetent. That's how we do it a lot. Now, how we want to do it instead is, Alexandra, I'd like you to give a presentation. My reaction? That is wonderful. I am delighted. I am excited. I'm looking forward to giving a presentation. I get to share the knowledge that I have with the people that are coming to listen, who can learn something from me, and I can leave them feeling just a little bit more knowledgeable than when they came. Isn't that wonderful that I get to give a presentation? How do I go from the first negative thought spiral to the positive reinforcing? And what does that have to do with the subconscious? Well, our subconscious is here to keep us away from pain and move us towards pleasure. So anything you ask for, kind of like the genie in a bottle, anything you ask for, your subconscious says, your wish is my command. Why? Because it's here to keep you alive and safe. And if you say, I don't want to give the presentation, I can't give the presentation, this is terrible, I'm going to mess up so badly, that feels like a threat to your life. And your subconscious is going to do exactly everything in its power to get you out of that situation. So you are going to have sweaty hands, a red face, you're going to hyperventilate, have butterflies in your tummy, you're going to get tongue-tied, and you might even get sick right before the presentation and not be able to give it because your subconscious is saying, I have to keep you alive and well. So how can you use your subconscious to your advantage? And how can you go from panic to ease? Imagine a child the day before a birthday, Christmas, big surprise party. This child cannot sleep, it cannot eat, it can't talk or think about anything other than that presentation. Heart rate is going to be raised, it's going to be so excited, and it just can't wait for that surprise to come. Well, these are the exact same symptoms that you're having when you're nervous about a presentation. Heart palpitations, a little feeling in the stomach, but that's where you can stop it. So rather than taking it in a negative direction, you're able to say, I am so excited. I can't wait to give this presentation. This is going to be wonderful. And excitement and nerves are identical to your body. So you can trick your mind into thinking that you are so excited and use all the positive emotions. You really have to bring the feelings into this, all the positive emotions that you can use. That's why. And then you've got the adrenaline. So my excitement to give this presentation to you today is giving me the energy in order to show up and bring the energy to make this presentation good and stop you from just clicking away because I'm not coming over completely flat. What is the difference between the subconscious and the conscious? The conscious is only about 10% of our mind. This is where willpower, analysis, and decision-making resides. It's the part that you're listening to me and I am talking to you today. But 90% is our subconscious. You can think of it as our autopilot. It's where our beliefs, our values, our identity, confidence, habits, emotions, and the resistance to change, everything lives there. And it's wonderful that we've got this autopilot because imagine getting up in the morning and having to think, how do I get out of bed? What muscles do I need to use in order to get out of my covers and put on my socks? It would be such a waste of mental energy. So it's good that we've got the automation of our subconscious mind. But what doesn't help is when it's keeping us in a position where we don't want to be because it doesn't serve us. I like this analogy of an astronaut with one of these bubble helmets, when they go out into space. Now imagine that this helmet is coated in green and everything you're seeing has this green tint to it. So you're not seeing the world as it truly is. You're seeing the world through this tinted glass that you're looking through. And the acoustics are going to be a little bit off as well because you're hearing it just slightly different. And I'd like you to think of your subconscious mind the same way and your beliefs and your values coming through. Each one of you listening to me talk right now is going to resonate differently with what I'm saying based on your own beliefs and your values that you've been raised with. Perhaps some of the consequences of imposter syndrome resonated with you, but not somebody else. And that is perfectly fine because you are unique. And this is the power of your subconscious mind. But if I'm talking about beliefs and values and habits in your subconscious mind, how did they get there in the first place? Everything comes back to earliest childhood. If you look at a young child, they are pure emotion. They'll be laughing one minute, crying the next before they're giggling again. Because everything is pure emotion. We are pure emotion when we are born because we see the world through emotion. We make sense of the world through emotions. Some things feel good, other things feel bad, and we don't understand yet how everything is connected. A child doesn't have the capacity to not cry when the toy goes in the box because for the child, the toy's gone. Whereas for us adults, it's, well, the toy's going in the box and it can come back out tomorrow, but we're just doing something different now. And those are moments where we realize that our own inner child has gone through a lot. And we have these beliefs, these moments that happened, and our parents and caregivers had the absolute best intention. And still we heard things and felt things. Perhaps somebody said, oh, she'll never achieve anything, or he'll always finish last. Those words stick, and they create an emotional wound deep inside of us. The first 7 years of our life, we are in essence hypnotized. Our brainwave states are such that they are letting everything in unfiltered. We don't have a filter. By being a sponge, the advantage is we learn so much faster. That's why a child can just watch, copy, learn, and it's instant. After the age of 7, we then have these pre-installed beliefs through which we look at the world. And perhaps we learn that I'm just really bad at math or I suck at languages because somebody told us that, but it's not actually true, but we made that belief our own. So these beliefs that we heard that are helping us as a child to make sense of the world and to become part of the tribe are now living in our mind rent-free. And they're creating these programs of how we think, feel, and do things. And oftentimes they end up holding us back. Because when we're a child, we don't see the big picture and we take everything so personally. So if somebody said that you're just never going to amount to anything, that might stick with us so much longer into our adult life. And when we're supposed to go out into the world and show ourselves, do something new, take on a new role, that message comes back up. You'll never amount to anything. And either you try way harder, or your lens is always going to see confirmation bias that you're not good enough and you're never going to amount to anything because it sees failure everywhere you look. When we're trying to change and we're trying to talk ourselves out of these negative emotions, we're using logic. Classic example, January 1st. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to change my life. And it's a struggle. It's a fight. Because our subconscious mind is saying this is going against the programming that we have. That we want to be comfortable. That we want to be doing well and have an easy life. So emotions always trump logic. And we need to find a way to connect to our emotions in order to bring long-lasting change into our life. How do we do that? Well, if you work with a therapist like myself, as a rapid transformational therapist, I will take you into a really calm and relaxed state where you're able to access those early childhood memories, those emotions especially, that are connected to what is holding you back today. And then together we're able to untangle what it is, make sense of it through the lens of an adult, seeing the big picture in your life. You're then able to reframe and let go of those beliefs that no longer serve you, and instead install new beliefs that are supportive, that are taking you to being the confident person that you deserve to be, so that you can live your life according to your full potential, however that may look to you. So say a belief would be, I'll never amount to anything. You're now able to understand where that came from. You're able to see how that belief was lodged deep inside of you, and you're able to analyze with your adult mind whether or not that is true. And it's not true, because you are doing so wonderfully well. And now we're able to install a new belief that you are enough, you are good enough, you're showing up in a wonderful way in this world, and you are doing everything in your power to make the right decisions in the moment. And everything is okay as it is. For example, that would be your new belief. And then through repetition, that creates new neuronal pathways in your brain. And thanks to neuroplasticity, you can completely change your thinking in 21 days and beyond. So how can you do that by yourself if you're not ready to work with me? Start connecting with your emotions. Repeat every day, I am good enough. I'm doing wonderfully well. I am giving my everything. I am showing up as myself. I can be so proud of myself. And do that repeatedly over and over and connect it with so much emotion. Close your eyes and really feel it. Visualize it and you'll see the thought becomes the positive feeling, and that positive feeling will change how you show up in the world, and it will change how people see you, and that will positively reinforce how you think of yourself. And just make sure that the 99% of the day where you are not visualizing this, you don't slip back into that negative voice that you had before. Actively say stop and reframe that. Because your mind cannot differentiate what is real and what is imagined. That is why you can visualize and connect it with the emotions. They did wonderful experiments with athletes. They put them in an MRI and they told them that they're going to visualize themselves running a race that they had coming up. And as the athletes were visualizing the race they were running, the scientists were watching the brains of these athletes. And they saw that the different areas of their brain were lighting up in correspondence to which muscles would be used if the athlete was actually running that race in the moment. So use this to your advantage. Connect with everything you have. Going back to the example with the presentation, see yourself, visualize yourself giving that presentation. The more detail you can add, the better. You don't have to have the content, but see yourself standing there. If you know what you're going to wear, even better. If you know the room, put all that in your visualization. See yourself standing there confidently, easily, effortlessly giving the presentation in the perfect tone of voice, in the perfect speed, with the perfect energy to take the room on a journey with you. And see how that changes. Some other daily habits I would like you to implement. First of all, take a stopwatch and a couple of pieces of empty white paper. Set your watch to no more than 5 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes is the absolute max. And now I'd like you to write down everything that critic is saying in your mind that's living in there rent-free. Just write everything down that comes to mind. And then walk away when those 10 minutes are over. Come back to it at a later point and read through what your beliefs are. And I promise you, you would never speak to your best friend the way you're talking to yourself. So why are you doing that? The most important words you'll hear are the words you say to yourself and the pictures you make. So make those pictures count. Change the words you're saying to yourself. That is so important. And understand that you might feel doubt at times. That is perfectly normal. It is showing you where you still have an opportunity to improve and grow. I don't want you to have hubris and just think you can do anything without doing anything for it. That's not what we want. We want you to be dedicated, to be motivated, to be conscientious. But understand if you've got doubt coming somewhere, it's there to show you something. It's an opportunity for growth. Because everything else is straight out of the movie Catch Me If You Can. Next, visualize and connect your visualizations with emotions. The pictures you make in your head and the words you say to yourself are the most powerful tools you have. Remember the athletes and visualize, connect with positive emotions. See yourself giving that presentation confidently, effortlessly. I've changed myself completely. I used to be such a bundle of nerves when I gave presentations. And as you can tell, I'm somebody really different today. So if I can do it, so can you. And perhaps you'd like to start a journal where you can write down small achievements every day that you are proud of, that you did well. Not only does that train you to pat yourself on the back and not wait for external validations of your achievements, but it's also a chance that if you're feeling down or something happened that unfortunately didn't go as you wanted, and that is perfectly normal, it's a part of life, gives you a chance to go back and look at your booklet and see how wonderfully you are doing. And don't be ashamed to reach out. Reach out for a free consultation call. Reach out to a therapist. Connect with somebody who you feel is trusting and deserving. Because we're all here to support. And there's no shame in accepting help or asking for help. Quite the contrary. You don't have to suffer through this in silence. There are ways to get out of it that are wonderful, that are proven, and we're all here to help you. So remember, your mind responds to the pictures you make and the words you say to yourself. So really make those pictures and those words be uplifting, positive, and supportive of the person you deserve to be. Because you are good enough. You are worthy. You are doing a wonderful job. And you are allowed to continue to grow and evolve. But be fair. Acknowledge how far you've come. Pat yourself on the back. And really say those words to yourself that you would like to hear, that you deserve to hear. Be positive. And if you'd like to work with me and become another one of my really happy, successfully transformed clients, I offer sessions both in Switzerland physically and online around the world. My sessions last about 2 hours. And as I showed you already during the presentation, because it is rapid transformational therapy, 3 to 4 sessions is the most that my clients really need to become completely transformed. Reach out for a free consultation call and let's see if we're a fit and if you'd like to work with me. My contact details are all through the QR code. Send me any questions you may have by email. My email is on the screen as well. My website and everything is connected through the QR code. I also have a YouTube channel if you would like to just hear my voice in action and how it can work. Watch one of those audios. There's a channel in German and a channel in English because I offer sessions in both languages. And with that, thank you for spending the time with me today. Thank you for listening to this recording. And I am absolutely delighted to have given you my insight on how to overcome imposter syndrome. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me by email. I love to interact with you and answer any questions you may have. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.